We should improve Rainbow Six Siege somewhat, yet you participate in Rainbow Six. You should stop playing Siege if it makes you that mad. I am very intelligent. So dudes, I'm Gwen, and I yap about Rainbow Six Siege. Whoa! Name drop! Anyway, why are people leaving Rainbow Six Siege? Good question. It hasn't been talked about in any of my other videos. I promise. This is completely original content. People are leaving the game, mainly because the infrastructure is not very good right now. But another point that I haven't talked about as much is just boredom. I think a lot of people are bored. I think a lot of people are bored with the game. One of the most significant complaints about the game is the lack of fresh content. If you look at the pacing and the rate of content that the game is currently getting, as opposed to what it was getting during year 2, year 3, year 4, etc., it has certainly slowed down quite a bit. Now, there's a number of different reasons for this, and we can all talk about it from a game developer point of view, which is irrelevant, of course, because you, the consumer, you're so precious. And you deserve everything. You deserve the world. The game developer aside, the main problem, as far as I can tell, is that Rainbow Six Siege has not been able to do a very good job of, and this isn't really anyone's fault, hasn't been able to communicate just what went into making 2 new operators, plus a new map, plus new gadgets, plus new weapons for each of those operators, and the sheer amount of saturation the game underwent in order to get it into a marketing position where it could actually get some penetration and actually get revolving customers and people that were playing the game actively instead of the $60 up front that it came out for in December of 2015. The point is, the game is going to have a hard time adding new content because as it maintains this old code base, it's going to get more difficult to add new things. So, regardless of this, players have still expressed considerable frustration over me being on my phone in the drone phase. This is unacceptable behavior. Never do that. I would never be on my phone in the drone phase. Clearly, somebody has taken over my body like the symbiote from Spider-Man, and that's not me. I'm kidding. My ADD ass will find any form of stimulation and just, it's done. It's donezo. But basically, people feel like they are experiencing the same gameplay over and over again without any particularly, substantial changes to the formula. And if the changes to the formula are done, what usually ends up happening is those changes become something that they don't particularly like. A great example of this was Fenrir. When Fenrir was in the game for as long as he was in the game in a state that a lot of people found to be a little bit overtuned. Now, Ubisoft claimed that on their data sheet, what they were looking at indicated an operator that was not broken or imbalanced, but it didn't matter because it was frustrating enough to play against. It was another character that was a set and forget kind of trap-based, sort of operator that had a blinding effect that was really not, necessarily impossible to counter. It didn't have impossible counterplay, but it was a significant pain in the butt regardless. So, it's a really tough situation where you can't add new content for a game that's almost 10 years old without irritating some people, because then you're going to have to start trying to come up with new ideas that may not necessarily, make everybody too happy in terms of the frustration aspect of the mechanic. This creates a cyclical issue, because if you keep adding characters that create frustrating gameplay loops, people are going to want to leave because they don't want to deal with the frustrating gameplay loop. On top of that, the gameplay itself is given a much higher barrier of entry in terms of the actual onboarding process, in terms of the information that people have to internalize when they start playing the game. So things end up, it's a two-way issue. You end up making the game complex on the ground for people that are playing it, and they might not necessarily like what's in the mechanical meta, and you make it more intimidating for new players. So you're having an issue with trying to make sure that you're not driving players away. That is your current audience, that is your base, but you also want to attract new players. You want to be doing 2 of these things at the same time. You have 2 problems. You want to keep your existing audience, and you want to generate new audience members. This is a common problem throughout entertainment in general, especially on YouTube. Siege is already a complex game with intricate gameplay mechanics. The constant updates and the changes to operators, gadgets, and mechanics require players to continuously adapt and learn new aspects about it every time they want to pick it back up. So even for people who are initially familiar with the game, this happens on my stream all the time. People will come to the game after a year or year or two long break, and they'll ask, what the heck is Malusi? What does Malusi do? Man, am I old or what? And it's easy to make fun of, but it is a pretty common phenomenon with hero games in general, especially stuff like League of Legends. Like, I remember playing League of Legends religiously in high school, and I really haven't played it at all since. I tried to get back into the game 3 years later because my college friends were really into it, and I was just like, bro, everything that I used to do just isn't a thing anymore. Like, Jack's Jungle isn't a thing anymore. That was like my thing, man. What the heck? There goes my entire... Now I have to relearn, pretty much how to play the entire game, and sometimes that's kind of what it feels like. So you need to have an incentive to actually continue playing the game, and right now there really isn't one, because the cheating and the matchmaking is just so awful right now. If it weren't for Staff Hub, shout out Staff Hub, I really wouldn't have, the gameplay that you have on the screen. Well, this is a ranked game. Most of the time for these videos, you'll have Staff Hub gameplay. But I really wouldn't have, high quality level content because it would just, the experience has been so muddled by this nonsense. Cheating is a pervasive problem, and it's impacted the game's integrity as well as the player experience overall. So BattlEye is simply not cutting it right now. I think a lot of people are really past the point of giving BattlEye the benefit of a doubt. Cheaters will exploit the old code base that the game currently is built on. God only knows if Ubisoft has a plan to actually do anything about it. I really hope they do, because I can't, make YouTube videos restating the same talking points that I've already said for the past month and a half. So the core experience is confusing, right? Really, really high barrier of entry in terms of the information that you need to learn in order to get to a competitive level, in order to have a fun experience. That experience is marred competitively by the cheating situation, and the experience is always changing. So it's inaccessible, one, compared to a lot of other first-person shooter games, and if you do manage to access it, you'll end up running into cheaters which ruin all the time that you just spent. So who is going to do that, right? Who is going to spend a ton of time trying to get up to speed with a game like this if there's no point, right? If they're just going to play ranked and it's just a waste of time. Another thing that I think a lot of people get dissuaded by with this game is the community. The community can be quite toxic. People cite this very often, and it's not something that I, run into as much because I tend to stick to my friend group. If people in my rank stack are being abrasive or, they're not on the same page as me to the point where I'm sure that there is a, emotional imbalance, then I just, I'm not going to play ranked with them. Now, a lot of people, and this is something that you eventually learn the older you get, they have this idea, right, that we can, we'll get along with a toxic guy in the stack, right? We'll try to find a way to negotiate through the situation. I don't do that anymore. It's one strike, you're out. It doesn't matter. Like, if I make a mistake or if I make a bad play, I'll just say my bad, sorry. And if you want to be a giant asshole about it, then I'm muting you, right? Like, or if you do something, right? If you're playing like ass and then you want to take it out on the rest of the team, then I'm going to mute you. So if you're an asshole at the top or the bottom of the leaderboard, I don't care. I don't care if you're Shroud. I don't care if you're Bolo. I'm muting you. That's how I deal with it. It's difficult for me to do sometimes because I'm an argumentative person. I want to argue with everybody in the world, but I am getting better about it. However, I would not fault somebody, right, for looking at the game the way it is, looking at that and saying, yeah, this is a massive pain in the ass, and I just don't want to deal with these kids. I just don't want to deal with it. Siege tends to have a population of players that leans a little bit more towards the adult side. I think that does have something to do with the fact that it is a Tom Clancy product and it's a little bit more tactical, despite what people say in YouTube comments and on Twitter, than something like Valorant, for instance. So I do manage to get, a lot less of that in this game than I do on Val. with the like 15-year-old Reina main who has no strategic thinking skills worth a damn. But, you know, it does happen quite a bit, and it is a competitive game, so sometimes people are going to be rude. And a lot of people don't even want to deal with that at all, right? I understand that. It's not for everybody. Aside from that, the game is also plagued with technical issues and bugs. People often report numerous technical issues that persist throughout the game. They seem to happen, you know, every season there's like a new thing. Something that was infamous relatively recently during Operation New Blood. This season there seemed to be an issue with the graphical fidelity. There was like a problem, I think if you were running on Vulkan, you would get like these really weird little like visual hiccups where stuff would like fade in and out and look really like pixelated and jagged and messed up. And I'm not really sure what is, well, I have an idea of what I think is causing that. I'm not a game dev, but I believe it probably has something to do with the old code base, let's be honest here. And that's not going to get addressed for some time right now, and if it's ever going to get addressed. So at the end of the day, the only thing that people can really do is just, you know, take things as they go with each individual patch, but it does not help the situation. It does not help the perception that the game seems to have around it lately, and it's, you know, it is what it is. I can't force people to feel positive about a situation when they have, you know, valid reasons to be upset about something. And I think that with Siege, it's not one particular thing that seems to be irritating people. It's rather than that, it seems to be this culmination of problems that have been built up over the course of a couple of years or so, and eventually players start to feel like they've had enough, and then something comes out and they're like, I'm finally done with this, like I can't take it anymore. And I'm in a unique position because I'm a content creator. I can't really, you know, put the game down entirely, or because I gotta pay the bills, right? Like I gotta make a paycheck. But I also do enjoy the privilege of being able to play in an environment where a lot of the game's issues don't really affect me as much, particularly the cheater thing, because in my staff hub environment, I don't have to play against cheaters. That's something that I get to do that other people don't get to do. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword for me, because on one hand, I understand where people are coming from, because if I was in that position where I had to play ranked every single day, like Macy J, I would want to pull my hair out. But at the same time, I've had this conversation before when it comes to content creation. It's just like, it's math. It's statistics. The way that the situation works on YouTube is that if you try to play against YouTube's rules, if you try to swim against the current, you will lose. That's kind of what the jokes at the beginning of the video were about. I don't know why people, you know, keep clicking on videos that explain how Siege is the worst game ever made and it ruined my life or something again and again and again and again and again. But they do. A lot of them do. Enough of them do to weight the algorithm. So I can't fight thousands and thousands of people, right? Statistically, I will not win. So the only thing that I can do is try to talk about the game in as good faith a way as possible and try to discuss it both from a developer point of view and both from a consumer point of view. Which, how dare I talk about it from a developer point of view, because of course all developers are evil, bug people sent from hell to ruin our gaming with esports slop, of course. Speaking of things that are sent from hell to ruin our enjoyment with esports slop, monetization and microtransactions. Something a lot of people point out nowadays are the cosmetic items and what is available in the battle passes. We obviously had the Rainbow Six membership that came out not too recently that was received quite poorly. Nobody was a fan of that, and I feel like people have a right to be upset about that when there are so many other monetization items in the game right now. I think that if you look at the skins and you're like, hey, this is pretty cool, I like these skins actually, and I'm gonna spend money on it, eat your heart out, have a great time, spend those UB bucks, okay? Drip yourself out in the Rainbow Six swag, the virtual Rainbow Six swag. I believe that people have a right to look at that and go, no, I will not. I think that is fair. I think that is okay. Now, when it comes to skins in general, if you look at the skin that I have on my AK right now, this is from Year 1, Season 4. This is from Operation Black Screen because I'm Alt-Tab. This is from Operation Red Crow. Red Crow, in my opinion, had some of the best Alt-Tab, had some of the best skins, probably the best skins that the game has ever had. Every single new season of Rainbow Six Siege, each new patch revolved around a particular kind of art theme and art style and made it into like a fun sort of, hey, this is an operation going on. In Operation Red Crow, there's, you know, some business guys, like maybe up to some like Yakuza stuff in this map, right? They're doing some dastardly deeds up to some nasty, nasty stuff, and we got to stop them. A lot of rich guys doing coke, doing crazy stuff, and we got to put an end to it. Of course, the coke, that's the reason that we're invading the skyscraper. No, I mean, it's, you know, I'm sure there's a little bit more to it than just that. But ultimately, it seems that we've ended up kind of losing that. I remember when Operation Shifting Tides came out, and that was the first time we started, you know, to not really get new maps. We had this whole thing where it's like, Wamai and Callie are posted up on the thingamajig. They're posted up on the thing. I can't believe this guy was holding that. I wanted to crash out and punch drywall when this guy, I thought I could sprint. I thought I could be lazy here and just sprint through and get for the plant. No, he's holding that and actually wins that gunfight. Like, honestly, way to go. Like, you deserve that. Anyway, yeah, I wanted to crash out when Operation Shifting Tides came out. We had the cool music. It was like Metal Gear Solid. You had the people, you know, posted up on the thing. It's like, oh, okay, we're gonna like invade an oil rig, right? Is that what's happening? Yo, this is sick. Oil rig map? That is so tight. That's a perfect opportunity for Rainbow Six. Nope, we're gonna rework Theme Park. And eventually, you know, Theme Park, the rework came out. It went into the professional circuit, and people realized, oh wait, this is actually a really good map. This is a pretty good professional competitive map. But at the time, right, when people didn't really like Theme Park, and there was like this weird pushback with map reworks back then where it was, you know, a lot of the gamer populism stuff that you're reading right now where it's like, I'll never get to play that content again. Theme Park was near and dear to my heart. And it's like, okay, most people I felt didn't enjoy Theme Park, but you know, that's gamer populism aside. That situation did not help. Why are you alt-tabbing so much? Watching this video back is like the scene from Interstellar where Matthew McConaughey's character is like in the library thing where he's like, no! That's me watching this and trying to tell myself to stop alt-tabbing and going back to the black screen. So yeah, the cosmetic situation is definitely not helping. I think you have, you know, stuff like Operation Mute Protocol 3.0 where you had reskinned skins that were being added and then kind of treated as new skins, and you were charging money for them, which was like a real big yikers. That was a one-way trip to Yikers Island. That did not help the situation. That did not help the press, the reputation, the general sentiment from the player base. A lot of content creators were united and speaking out against that and saying like, hey, UB, you guys kind of screwed up here. So that did not help. The competitive scene for Rainbow Six Siege has also seen a bit of a decline relatively recently because there's been, you know, not really that many significant updates or particularly strong innovations in the esports format. Some people do not like the way the format has been currently arranged out. They're not a particularly big fan of the super long off season. I think that, you know, that is a valid critique when we're talking about player retention, when we're talking about audience retention, when we're talking about how are we going to attract new people to the scene. Esports does not function on the same kind of format of physical, you know, in terms of the actual physical things that you go through, people having to go to physical therapy, right? Having a doctor, having all of these different, you know, sort of systems in place to prevent injuries, stuff like that, which I think there should be more of, and there are definitely concerns about it, but it's not like football, right? It's not like American football where you're potentially at risk for, you know, concussions on a repeated basis. So there are physical ailments that can happen from over gaming, you know, from really locking in too much. But at the end of the day, I think that the argument for an off season is a little bit more difficult to make to the general player base. So in a lot of different ways, it feels like players are in a situation where their concerns, despite a lot of the situation, right, despite a lot of the valid critiques that people have, they're not necessarily being listened to 100% of the time because Ubisoft has to go through very involved sort of press channels before they can actually get out in front of things and say things to the public. So all of these things and more are contributing to a prevailing sense within the Siege community that Ubisoft is maybe aware of the issues, maybe they're not aware of the issues. And if they are aware of the issues, how come we haven't had particularly pertinent lip service to a lot of the issues? I feel like having an anti-cheat update every once in a while on Twitter is a step in the right direction. But what I would like to see more of is a discussion about an actual long-term solution, not month-by-month status updates on this issue that should get to a point where I don't want to participate in the anti-cheater war anymore. I did not enlist. I am not volunteering to fight in the cheater war. My job is not that. That is not my responsibility as a consumer. Ubisoft is offering this game as a service, as a product that people pay money for in order to play. So as a customer, I want this issue to be solved at some point. I want a sustainable, long-term solution that allows me to enjoy the game that I have paid money for. I don't want constant status updates of, hey, this is what we did today. This is what we did today. I understand that. That's cool. I'm glad you're doing your best. Eventually, I would like an actual solution. That's where I'm at. Unironically, that's where I'm at. That's where I think a lot of consumers are too. We lost this game because I costed. You're not missing anything. And that's the rest of the video. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know. Why did you eventually leave Rainbow Six Siege? Let me know in the comments down below. And I will see you guys in the next video tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching. Deuces.